Reducing motor carrier risk. Are you asleep yet? How about picture yourself on the witness stand in a courtroom at trial and you're the reason for the crash? Still napping? That's how important this topic is, to understand your role in trucking, safety, insurance, and compliance. So please say hello, make new friends, grow your network, and learn from the best on ATI #1, ATI Auto Business. What's up, ecosystem? Welcome back to ATI Auto Business, automotive ecosystem, where everyone learns more about the automotive industry. Let's get started with top industry news and headlines that include Carvana acquires a franchise dealership. Oh, Canada, the March tariffs are here. And hackers attack EV charging stations. Why? Well, we have show 388 on a Tuesday night on Automotive Ecosystem, and we're going to talk about reducing motor carrier risk. Now, I tried to make a point of that. I know it's such an important topic, and yet it feels easy to gloss over or hard to put your arms around. Well, to help me do it right, I've got a panel. I've got Guy Orliac. He is with Asenga. Phillip Wiggington is a risk management, risk control leader. Bren, a insurance guru. Thank you so much, Rich, for helping me put together tonight's show. And Norris Beren, pleased to have Chief Executive Advisor to CEOs at Risk Reward Consulting. These gentlemen are going to be talking about, well, one of the things we're going to talk about is the video, how video will help you. Don't be afraid of video. It's going to help you. You want it on camera. And as I always talk about, know your ecosystem. I move around the verticals from week to week: OEM, dealer, auction, logistics, remarketing, recon, compliance, and tech. If you are looking to understand more about the ecosystem from a truly neutral third-party perspective, that's what ATI Auto Business is here to help you do. Yes, we have clowns to the left, jokers to the right. That's why I'm playing a challenge this month. It's called March. It's where I just try to make it through every day of March. Tuesday nights is Automotive Ecosystem. That's where you're at right now. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're watching live or on demand, it's wonderful to have you here. Please, you can leave comments in the chat or below. Last Tuesday night, I had superhuman support. We did a live AI logistics agent demo, voice demo, and where I called into an AI and I talked to an AI. If you missed the show, you can check it out on the YouTube channel. There were 3 live demos, and you can skip ahead. Just go to the time codes in the description. Also on Thursdays, that's my logistics show. Some noons on Thursdays. We did Auto Logistics AI Do or Die recently, because it's starting to feel that way. If you're really looking at AI, the more you look at it, the more you realize you need to look at it more. All right, let's do some news. Here we go. 5 minutes after. Excellent. So this should be the big news. That Carvana moves into franchise ownership with the purchase of a Stellantis store. Carvana closed a deal on February 28 to acquire a franchise dealership in its home state of Arizona, marking a potentially bold move into new vehicle sales for the online retailer, which since 2013 has sold only used vehicles and not at dealerships, I believe. Carvana bought Jerry Seiner Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Casa Grande, Arizona, roughly 45 miles south of Tempe, where the company is headquartered. A Carvana spokesman said, "We're always experimenting. This is a small test in a single market. We're excited to join the Stellantis network, and our focus in this test will be learning how to provide great customer experience at a franchise dealership." Interesting they chose Stellantis. The dealership will be renamed Casa Grande Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Carvana plans to keep the store and all of its employees, just renaming it. It's now with Carvana. But that's not the really big news. As you know, U.S. imposes tariffs on Canada and Mexico imports, upending complex auto supply chains. You voted for them, so here's your U.S. tariffs on goods from Canada and Mexico went into effect today, forcing automakers and suppliers to brace for higher costs and significant disruptions to vehicle and parts production in the highly integrated North America supply chain. The 25% tariffs apply to all imports from the two countries, except for energy imports from Canada, which we're just finding more about now, which will be subject to a 10% duty tariffs on imports from China and are 20% after Trump administration also imposed a 10% duty on Chinese imports. On top of that, it's just going to keep stacking. Actually, I think they're calling it stacking tariffs. Canada and Mexico plan to respond with retaliatory measures. Oh boy. Including tariffs and other trade restrictions, Canada will immediately impose 25% duties on $30 billion worth of American goods, to be followed by tariffs on another $125 billion in goods. Our tariffs will remain in place until the U.S. trade action is withdrawn, and should U.S. tariffs not cease, we are in active and ongoing discussions with provinces and territories to pursue several non-tariff measures. So, who holds all the cards now? China also retaliated against the U.S., applying 50% tariffs on certain American food imports and barring some U.S. companies from doing business there. Mexico will unveil a package of retaliatory tariffs and other measures on March 9th. What they'll have to do is build their car plants. Okay, Trump said, what they'll have to do is build their car plants, frankly, and other things in the United States, in which case they have no tariffs. Yeah, because that's just easily done. The trade war between the U.S. and its closest trading partners threatens to upend the decades-old and highly integrated automotive supply chain in North America. Wish somebody had done the briefing on that. Let's be real honest. Long-term 25% tariffs across the Mexican and Canadian border will blow a hole in the U.S. industry we've never seen before. Ford CEO Jim Farley said that nearly a month ago. But the golden age is here, says U.S. Senator Bernie Moreno. Sorry, buddy. I'm going to use this all year, I think. Anyways, yes, I realize that punching a hole in the U.S. debt clock, that's a good idea, yes. Yeah, I get it. And there's a Doge clock now. And having a chainsaw and, branding is awesome. But as the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, says, U.S. markets are already tanking. American plants and assembly lines will close. Americans will pay more for everything. For the sake of the American people, President Trump needs to pull back his tariffs. I want to inflict as much pain as we possibly can, he says, and put an export tax on electricity sent to the U.S. Oh, this is going well. Ontario plans to slap a 25% export tax on the electricity it supplies to 3 states amid sweeping tariffs on Canadian goods. Ford made the comment today that an export tax would apply to electricity that Ontario sends to 1.5 million homes and businesses in New York, Michigan, and Minnesota. It's not immediately clear when that will go into effect. And he's writing every senator, every congressman, congresswoman, governors of New York, Michigan, Minnesota, telling them if these tariffs persist, if the Trump administration follows through on any more tariffs, we will immediately implement a 25% surcharge on the electricity we export. So it's just a threat. It's just a card on the table right now. It's just cards. He added that if tariffs persist in April, the province will consider cutting off electricity to the U.S. Oh, God. Ford mused that the extra electricity will be used to power Ontario manufacturing plants. I want to inflict as much pain as possible, ripping up the $100 million agreement with Elon Musk's Starlink. Ontario Premier Doug Ford said this will have devastating impacts on U.S. auto manufacturing sector, that the tariffs will shut down the U.S. within a matter of days. We're going to see U.S. plants close, assembly lines shut down, 8 to maybe 10 days at the max, and you're going to see auto plants being shut down. It's unnecessary, but we do have to retaliate. Sorry, American people, it's not you, it's your president causing you this problem. And Trump's tariffs could lead to auto plants closing within a week. But it's the golden age. It's just cards on a table. Yeah. The auto industry cannot pivot on a dime to adapt to tariffs. Yeah, that's a good point, too. And tariffs could have major implications for trucking, but, you know, I don't know. Greenland's looking pretty good. And then there's this. We all remember this. What was this the other day? Yeah, you don't have the cards. Ford pulls the plug on stocking EVs at regional hubs instead of dealer lots. A pilot program failed to catch on among skeptical retailers and lawyers. The automaker had intended to store unsold EVs not on dealership lots, but rather at one of the 21 rapid replenishment centers around the U.S., then deliver them to stores within 2 weeks of being ordered by a customer. The system was meant to eliminate burdensome floor plan expenses for retailers and make Ford's distribution model more cost competitive with rivals such as Tesla that don't use franchise dealerships. But I'm sure that really hurt some of those ADAs out there. Ford began piloting the concept in May 2024 with the F-150 Lightning. Late last year tried to boost participation by incentivizing dealers to order through centers, but slow adoption and a series of issues prompted the company to pull the plug. Retailers, including members of Ford's National Dealer Council, were never fully on board with the idea. I wonder why. Even if it reduced inventory carrying costs, largely because of the separate sales process it created for EVs, and because dealers hate change. There are cyber attacks at EV charging stations. Those are on the rise. That's good news. Cyber attacks targeting electric vehicle charging infrastructure are getting more common, more high risk. As devices, apps, and other tools talk to each other, the footprint of the attack grows larger. We should just continue connecting everything. 59% of the EV charging attacks in 2024 had the potential to impact millions of devices, including chargers, mobile apps, vehicles, iPads. 37% could have affected thousands of devices. Attackers have different reasons for targeting mobility devices and infrastructure, including boredom. Quests for personal information fraud attempts such as routing drivers to fake payment pages, pursuit of ransom payments, and perpetrators' exchange for the release of system control data. Nearly 3/4 of the attacks on EV charging stations involved service or business disruptions, meaning the hackers were in most cases able to impact the charger's functionality. It's fine. We have the cards. Blind spots in front of a truck. Did you know you could fit a car in a truck's blind spot? That's just in the front. Let's go through the blind spots. In the front, it's 20 feet in front of the cab. On the right side, nearly 3 lanes wide. On the left side, about a lane, and the rear blind spot, about 30 feet. But you know what? Go ahead and weave in and out and act crazy. 1 in 3 fatal crashes involve a semi-trucker caused by a passenger vehicle being in a blind spot. 74% of crashes between cars and trucks initiated by a passenger vehicle, which is why when the nuclear verdict comes in, it's always the trucker's fault. Only 18% of drivers understand semi-truck blind spots. Only 1% care. Yeah, sure, just do it. Just go for it. It's ATI, where everyone learns more about how the automotive industry really works. We cover all the verticals. Even though they don't want to watch the show, they do, because we don't ship cars, we move information. It's the only neutral zone you have. Get the podcast, enjoy it in your spare time. Go to ATI Auto Business, contact me, let me know how I can help. Let's get on to the show. We've got the panel, we got Guy, Phillip, Rich, and Norris, and we're going to have a reducing motor carrier risk party. So please stick around. Right after this, we'll be live with our panel. You don't want to miss it.
Are you completely stressed out from all the calls and the contracts and the verifications of loads where nobody ever answers the phone? Call Murphy Auto Dispatch Services today. Murphy Auto Dispatch Services has over 15 years in the transport industry. We are your office while you are on the road. We book, we verify, and we bill out your loads for you. We have an excellent accounting staff and an even better dispatch team. Give us a call today at 417-273-0021, or if you want to email me, it's murphyautotransport31@yahoo.com. Give us a call today.
Transport Auto Quoter is by far the leading auto quoting software on the market, and the only auto quoter with a pro version that comes preset with accurate pricing for anywhere in the U.S. So you don't have to worry about it. The best part is that no change with your current software is needed. Just plug TAQ in and start booking jobs. Carriers can easily plug TAQ into their current websites and start making money right away. I bet you're wondering how we do this instantly and accurately 24/7. Well, constant analytics is the key. Our Price Watch team is constantly monitoring current market conditions, paying close attention to seasonal and quick-moving industry changes. At the end of the day, it takes a lot of time and data to maintain good pricing, time that most of us just don't have on a daily basis. So free yourself up. Using TAQ Pro is really a no-brainer. Save time and money, maximizing your leads and optimizing your online investments. You'll finally be able to sleep well at night knowing that TAQ is on the job selling for you 24/7. Never missing a potential job.
Don't lose any more sleep worrying about missing leads. Get Transport Auto Quoter to quote the right price the first time, every time. Run your business with TAQ. Visit transportautoquoter.com. All right, here we go. You guys ready? We are here with a panel, the Reducing Motor Carrier Risk panel with Rich, Phillip, Guy, and Norris. I'm going to go in order on my screen. Rich, please say hello and tell us a little bit more about you.
Good evening, Jay. Thanks for having me back again. If you remember December a few years ago, I was a man of many hats, so I brought hats tonight, Jay. This is my trucker buddy hat. I'm a insurance geek. That's how Jay keeps finding me and bringing me back in, and I'm really glad to be a part of this group tonight, so that we can talk about ways to make motor carriers operate safer, drivers operate in a more appropriate fashion. And it's not just about cameras, it's about a lot of things that can be done. So again, I'm an old truck insurance guy, glad to be a part of this panel tonight, Jay. So thank you.
Thank you, Rich. The video was the hook because we need a hook to understand why this matters, right? Before the crash, in the email I wrote, before the crash. We could talk about it till we're blue in the face after the crash, and many people do. But we're here before the crash. Rich, you're responsible for helping put this together tonight. I've known you for years. I really, really appreciate you helping me do that. So thank you so much. Phillip, first time on ATI. Please say hello and tell us a little bit more about you.
Hey Jay, thanks for having me. Yeah, my name is Phillip Wiggington. I've been around trucking industry in a lot of different facets for most of my life. That's as a driver, a trainer, running a fleet safety program, truck enforcement, and also as a loss control rep for insurance carriers. So this is a topic near and dear to my heart, and I'm thankful to be on the show to be able to talk about it.
Phillip, thank you so much. Glad to have you with us. Guy, please say hello and tell us a little bit more about you.
Hey, Jay, thank you again for having us. My name is Guy, and I'm French, so I just want to put that up front in case people were worried about my accent. And I am the CEO of Asenga software, and Asenga is a software that was designed to exactly do what we are going to talk tonight, which is active risk data management to prevent accident before they happened.
Thank you very much, Guy. And Norris, first time on ATI, please say hello and tell us a little bit more about you.
Well, good evening to everybody. I'm Norris Beren. I'm out of Chicago. I spent 30 years in the insurance business, insuring nothing but trucking companies. And over the last 25 years, I have been an executive coach for well over 1,000 trucking companies in the U.S., primarily focusing on high-level issues, but specifically driver retention and recruiting issues. I'm the author of probably the book on driver retention and recruiting called How to Create an Intelligent Driver Retention System. I teach, I speak, I educate, and tonight maybe I can share a couple of ideas.
Wonderful. All right, we have plenty of time, and I'm going to hand it over to you. I just know that here's what's going through my mind right now. I know that, so I'm on LinkedIn pretty much all day, every day. And Rob Carpenter, he shares a lot of posts where you see some pretty crazy video.
Yep.
And so that's kind of what I'm thinking about. But where's a good place to start?
Well, maybe, Jay, I can start with a quote from the CEO of Blue Wire, okay? And so Steve Bren said, every 10 minutes, someone is injured from a truck crash and require medical treatment. Every 2 hours, someone dies in a commercial motor vehicle crash. Enough is enough. And another quote, according to the FMCSA, there have been 583 serious injuries, DOT reportable crashes involving 543 different motor carriers in 38 states in the 21 days since February 13, 2025. Those crashes have resulted in 799 injuries and 29 fatalities. 264 law enforcement agencies responded to and reported these crashes event. Blue Wire estimates a combined verdict settlement value between $419 million and $1.2 billion. And I think that's where we are here to talk about those issues. What can we do differently to change the outcome and make driving over the road better? So, and with my team and with the people here on the panel, it would be great, and we have discussed that, what can we do to change and to leverage what exists and to change to transform risk management and active risk management to change and reduce the number of accidents over the road.
Well, I think out of the gate, I think out of the gate, the first thing to do is, hey, let's stop having crashes, and that's an easy thing to say. But if we don't have crashes, we don't have injuries. So then, how do we prevent crashes? And we, equip drivers with the right tools and the training that they need to be successful. And then with that, you have to manage and mitigate any behaviors they may be exhibiting that could lead to crashes, right? So that you unpack that's a whole lot. But at the beginning of it, like we just have to stop hitting things.
So yeah. Now, one thing, my team talk to a lot of transportation company on a daily basis, and one of the things that we are realizing is that there is a lot of data being generated by truck and driver, but it seems that it's impossible for teams to manage that data. Do you guys agree with this?
One of the things that I learned a long time ago is a concept called decision driving. So when we talk about training, drivers do what drivers do in order to go where they want to go in a time frame that is comfortable for them and not necessarily a time frame that makes sense for the problems that they have to face. But spending more time and trying to get drivers to be able to be comfortable in terms of what they can and cannot do, and helping them get a better attitude. Too many drivers, I think, are just so freewheeling that they're just they get in and they go. And as you say, how many times do accidents occur because of that blind spot? It's a matter, no question. It's a matter of retraining, but it's also a matter of attitude adjustment and changing the way we think about the driving in this country.
But then let me ask you this. Is this like, for the last 20, 30 years, when there's an accident, we always point the finger to the driver, and and we put more system to focus on the driver, but not enough. Maybe is this so my question is it a driver problem, or it's a point problem, or is it a system failure when there is an accident? Is it just because of the driver, or is it because can we make everybody in the organization helpful to the driver to prevent the accident?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'll tell you, it's broad, right? Because if you equip the driver again with the tools that they need. Now, these are professional drivers; they're specially trained for a special piece of equipment. Like these men and women, they have a job, they have a task, and they're supposed to be the best at what they do. So, being able to get the right driver in the door, number one, and then treat them appropriately, and again, that goes back to equipping them for success with the right tools, equipment. Dispatching time, like Norris said, like these folks are going to drive when they need to drive. So being able to kind of manage that for them to where they can drive in optimal times to kind of lessen their exposure is super helpful. So when the driver gets in a crash, it's hard to say, well, this is why it happened or that's why it happened, because there are so many factors. And having the data, like to answer the question about like, hey, is there too much data? Yeah, there's a lot of data, right? So you have to have some way to kind of sort through. I've got telematics data, I got dispatch data, I've got camera data, I've got ELD data, I've got driver data, right? So like, how do you kind of like put all together to have your best outcome?
So I don't want to boast, but but when we designed Asenga as a software, basically we designed it to take care of that on behalf and use the data as it's already existing and to help transportation companies do better. I think that transportation companies have to do better as well, and the insurance industry and risk manager that work with them need to help them do better, to have better result. I think that the only way, at least our take at Asenga, is that the only way we can change the result is by engaging not just with the 10 or 20% of driver that are always going to be problem, but with all the driver. And the only way you can do that is by using software and software automation. And then that helps the safety team and risk management team focusing on the driver that really needs the most. And also what we are finding, and I don't know if you guys see that when you talk to executive at transportation companies, but do you guys see them that do they know, do they have the data on, safety and loss and things like that? Do they even know what happened on a daily or weekly basis?
Sometimes they do. The good ones do, right? So to kind of make a point for you, you having the tools and everything is great. Having like, hey, okay, well, I got this system where it can bring me all this data. The key is, and you said it, what are you going to do with it, right? Like, how do I take that data and push it down to make some kind of impact? And the companies that do have that data and that do act on that data and come up with a plan, like, okay, we got it, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to move forward to improve, they're the ones that are successful, right?
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's completely true. I mean, one of our clients, but they need to take advantage of the data on an ongoing basis. What we are finding is that the ones that are taking advantage of that data, it's a lot of manual process. The data is being delivered into dashboards, and from there, the data is delivered into manual process to driver or driver manager. And I think that from a Asenga perspective, we think that that's a process we take care of. We move from manual using of the data that is already existed to process automation. Now, I was reflecting to something, Rich, about, I was reading this week that Island was predicting that the increase in losses or the increase in insurance rate on the market will be this year between 5 and 10% on the better case and up to 25% in when there is trouble. What do you think of that? Do you see that in the market as well?
Well, I think one of the problems continues to be we know all these factors, but nobody's putting their hands around them. In preparation for tonight, I look back as an underwriter. Tool that I oftentimes used was the ATI study on crash predictors, and I believe we've all seen it. And in summary, driving behaviors. Reckless drivers are the people that have the accidents, right? Person that's had the crash is likely to have another crash. That driver that is caught driving recklessly, fails to yield, fails to maintain their lane, fails to signal, they just are risky people, and they're the ones that are going to have the crash.
Yep.
And as you continue to look at these things, now we have technology, and the cameras are good to help exonerate, right? If it's forward looking, it can help. If it's inward looking and they allow it to happen, it can help to exonerate. That's all good. But then there's this other article that we talked about, Guy, and that's that telematics broken promise. There is this data that people aren't using
Exactly.
in that proactive manner, right?
Exactly.
And so they're overwhelmed by all this data. There's disparity, or there's inconsistency, or there's some inaccuracies that you gotta work through. But what are you doing to look at this and then appropriately engage with your people and not take it out there to beat them over the head with it, but to get them involved in the process, saying, here's where we are, here's what we want to become. And if we want to become a safer fleet, if we want to be that fleet, as Phil alluded to us in our prep discussion, the driver can't afford to work for the motor carrier with a bad SMS score, right? Phil, they don't want to be in there getting inspected all the time. They would rather be going down the road. If they've got pre-pass, they want the green light, right? They've got a good safety score. And that driver's still got to have the mindset that I still got to I'm the captain of this ship and I got to maintain it. So I still got to have good brakes, lights, and tires. I still got to be able to inspect or pass an inspection, have my hours of service, but just behave appropriately in all these ways, and use these tools. And with management, the problem with a nuclear verdict, not that we want to jump into that, but what is it? It's oftentimes seeing that they're not compliant, that they've not done the right thing with drivers, not hired them, not retained them. That's a hot topic for Norris. Get somebody in here and coach them up good, get a good driver operating better. And
let's follow that for a minute. The question that I always ask myself is, what's the difference between a trucking company that has a great safety record and very low losses and a trucking company that has problems? And one of the things that I think you have to take into account is, how are drivers paid? What is the, in many cases, especially, for example, Jay, with your audience, with a lot of auto haulers, they're paid for productivity, whether it be by the mile or whatever. So when you have drivers that are being paid for productivity, they're encouraged to go fast, or to go in a shorter period of time. There are three causes of losses primarily: lane change, speed management, and the other one is speeding, space management, and lane change. The three major causes of losses. Why do drivers end up so often in those kinds of situations? Probably in a hurry. Bottom line, the difference between a great company and a mediocre company is the way the drivers are managed, and how they're paid, and what their incentives are, and what their incentives are not to get into trouble.
So let me ask you this, Norris. You talk with executives that manage and make decisions at transportation companies. How do they decide on this question? What do they say? What do they express to the people they work for them?
Depends on the culture of the company. Some companies have a very loose culture, and I find this in independent contractor companies more often than not. The drivers are paid to drive. They give them a load, they tell them go. When they're done, they go again. If you have a relationship or a culture where there's not a lot of oversight, not a lot of management, not a lot of high expectations of what the driver responsibilities are as respects to things like safety and compliance, you're going to have problems. So it's a matter of how well that management team is managing the drivers, and how well that culture is one of be safe all the time, be safe.
So let me ask you this. From my perspective, because I'm a software guy, I look at it as something that we can manage with software. At least we can create a system that automate and has standard KPI to help the safety team and the executive have insights, and to help them manage with their driver and their driver's manager, because it's not just a driver failure when there is an accident. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that. I think the higher level that management oversight is in a company. I work with CEOs. Okay, that's my primary responsibility, and their teams. And I insist that the teams, as the layer goes down further and further and further, there's more and more responsibility at the lower levels that rises up. So drivers know when they're being talked to by a safety person, okay, or by a dispatcher, they're getting the word from the top. It's just not a matter of you will do. If ownership speaks loudly through their people, then drivers will and should toe the line a lot safer and a lot better. But again, if the productivity is the primary focus on just get it there, okay, you got to be there by 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, get it there. What are you doing? You're encouraging bad behavior.
Well, and okay, so, and then the question is that how do you monitor the behavior and how do you make sure everybody is doing the right thing and the right thing at scale? Isn't that like part of the problem as well?
Well, and I think that's where some of the monitoring, the in-cab monitoring, is beginning to help. Unfortunately, they're only event driven for the most part. Okay, well, but there are other ways in which you can. I'll give you an example. There's a company in Illinois that does very, very well. And one of the things that impresses me most about them is they have a monitor on the gas pedal. They know how drivers focus on the pressure they put on that pedal. Now, a lot of it has to do with fuel management. They also know whether drivers are taking their time starting up and shifting and all that. So they're really watching drivers and how they perform and how they manage the truck. May not sound like a lot, but it had a huge impact on their safety. Because they don't have drivers that are just slamming on the pedal, going.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But what do you think, Phillip, about having multiple people involved in, the helping the driver do better and not just pointing the finger at driver, but making it like something that is a system to improve for improvement.
Yeah, I mean, to have a system, you have a plan, right? So, I mean, you can have, telematics, the inward cameras have been a game changer, like Norris said. And a lot of them now have AI capabilities. So that's really been a game changer. But to bring that into like, hey, this is how we're going to do things. And if we get X alert at this threshold, then this is what we're going to do. And actually follow through with it, right? Like, culture's key. And if, you got top-down leadership and, they can tell you what they want all day long, but until they start doing what they say, drivers aren't going to pay attention, right? So if you have a plan, you work the plan, and then that's going to drive the improvement.
Yeah. And do you
I want to add something.
Yep.
Same day delivery safety. Yeah. Is that even possible?
Sounds like an oxymoron, right?
Right? Because I know, like 925 Logistics, he's in the live chat right now, and we know that, carriers are pressured to get that thing,
Yeah, but same day, so it's shorter distance. And in my previous company, what we found that speeding for the same day in shorter distance doesn't get you many gains, but it increase the opportunity for loss and damages. So I think that, because there is another aspect that all transportation companies are dealing with today, and I tried to bring that up earlier, is insurance, okay? Every transportation company, it doesn't matter if you do local delivery, long distance, whatever, they need insurance coverage. And I can tell you this, based on the last 2 years of data, the coverage has been extremely expensive. And so I think that if you can help the driver and their manager have a better behavior on the road, you will have an improvement on the risk. And especially in local delivery, it may, in fact, you may get a couple of minutes faster, but the ability to increase the risk of potentially damaging something when you are just focusing on rushing rather than trying to limit, control the behavior, maybe the trade-off may not be valuable for you.
Yeah,
take a look at Jay, to your point, take a look at some of the parcel delivery companies. I could think of a couple that have very strict rules about what drivers can and cannot do. Yeah. I remember, and I think this is not, I don't know if this still is in effect, but one of the parcel delivery companies had an absolute rule: no left turn by any driver at any time in an intersection. And they did it for a reason. But the drivers adhered to that. If you violated it, they were going to terminate you. So that kind of responsibility on a driver, that kind of training, that kind of commitment by a driver to do the right things goes a long way.
And the management of it. I mean, I think it's
Absolutely.
No,
Yeah.
but because like I think that we are focusing on the driver. I think for me, I see it still as a partnership between manager, driver, and executive in the organization.
Yeah.
The other thing that I worry about a lot is hiring the right driver, and in the hiring process, there are ways in which you can find out the attitude of a driver and what they will and they won't do on certain circumstances. I use a questionnaire that I developed a number of years ago of 30 questions. I know it's hard to find qualified drivers, but when you find one you like, it's really worth going that extra mile and saying, how do you do this and how do you do that? What would you do in this situation? What would you do in that situation? It's not behavioral. It's trying to find out what that driver thinks of the way he drives the truck. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Phil.
Oh no, I'm just going to kind of follow up on the same day delivery thing, and you know, having the system. Like, these businesses are set up for that, but to your point a minute ago, though, Norris, like, those drivers are pressed for time as well too. They're told, hey, you've got X amount of deliveries you got to make, and you got to make it in this amount of time. And the crazy thing is, we all live in an area where we're getting, you know, same day deliveries, next day deliveries. Every day I see these folks driving all these courier trucks, and I'm not going to mention company names and put them out there, but they're all over the place. Every one of them, and the drivers are speeding. They're changing lanes quickly. They're not driving safely, right? So again, like, when I see that on the road, it's like, okay, I know what their policies are, right? They're big enough for people in like us to know, like, hey, I know they've got a strong safety program, but when you see their drivers doing it, you can see the culture not trickling down to those drivers, right?
But
it becomes a game of luck.
Keep in mind something, Phil. These seasoned same-day delivery drivers, delivery companies have very seasoned drivers. Some, like you're talking about, have very different drivers with very little experience, okay? And it's showing up. To give you an example, when's the last time you saw one of the major parcel delivery companies on the side of the road in a crash? You almost never see them.
It's rare.
Yeah.
You know,
And
you
so,
bring up
but so let me ask you this. You know, the difference, we know there is pressure to deliver, but is the difference, and that's what my argument was, is that the difference between having a, you know, like really pushy driving versus a more controlled driving, the difference in delivery, in fact, is not so different. Have you guys seen that in terms of stats, where in fact it's not like it's going to change so much the delivery, and the more you are pushing your driving, do you guys see that, or have you seen that? In fact, it doesn't increase so much more delivery, but it increases the risk on the road.
Clearly, it's going to increase the risk. There's no question about it. But I think, to your point, the more management is involved, data notwithstanding, the more management is involved at middle and lower levels. Never mind it's coming from the top, because that's where the directors are going to come from. But when you have managers that are very much involved with drivers, based upon the data that you're talking about, it does make a difference.
Yes.
As long as you're managing, as long as you're using the data to manage, as long as the driver knows that he is being, or she is being managed properly. The problem is not enough oversight.
Yeah, let me share a piece of data from one of our transportation company where we use our software to help them manage manager, driver, and executive. When we started with them, their losses that they had to pay out for approximately 150 trucks was $1.3 million a year in different type of losses and things like that. Today, and they had like approximately 12 accidents on the road. Today, by having a process that keep track and manage the behavior, they are at 2 accidents a year, and their losses is $170,000. Basically, those are losses that are quite unavoidable based on the data and the process automation that we are seeing. Do you think that can be applied? Do you guys think that that should be applied across the industry?
Well, what's changed? What's been applied and what's changed to cut that down 90%?
So what changed is that everybody, not just the driver, is accountable. Okay. So the manager and the manager's manager, everybody is accountable. Everybody is being prompted when there's a problem. Not only the driver receives messages in carrier email. The managers, the safety manager is being told, hey, you need to contact the driver, and we verify that he has contacted the driver, and then we send the same data to the to dispatch and to the executive sponsor. So now everybody, and we track that days in, days out. So now everybody is involved as part of the solution.
Do you feel that the drivers know that that culture has changed and there's getting more compliance because they are being managed better?
Yeah, I think the driver knows, but not only they know, they also know that their managers are involved, and they appreciate that every driver in the organization, not just the bad driver, are being paid attention to. So it's a multiple layer, but all of that, what we found is that it's no more the fault, a point problem, a driver problem, but it become everybody is part of the solution. That's another way to think about it.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you see that as a as a way to think about solving problems?
When the CEO says this is the way we're going to do it and means it and is willing to enforce it, okay, he can just get out of the way because he knows his team is going to be listening and the drivers will start obeying better.
Yeah, and if you can do that, and if you can manage the whole data at scale, then you really can achieve really important results.
But we're talking about fleets, and I'm guessing that a lot of Jay's audience may or may not be part of fleets. They may be
they can be part of fleet, or what you're saying, they are owner operators and things like that.
And they
I think they are still part of a system. Everybody is part of a system.
That's true. That's
and
true.
I think that if you can make the management systemic or systematic, then you treat everybody the same. That's the advantage of software, is that you treat everybody the same. That's the way we think about the problem. And what do you think about that, Rich, in terms of how is that helping with insurance and reducing and attracting and managing rate? I mean, if you can prove that you are managing your driver on an ongoing basis, do you think insurance company will be receptive of managing cost?
Well, again, as Jay knows, my dancing fingers, right, with my 6 points of underwriting, the driver and the way this thing is operating will determine the losses. So your management team's got to be good. Now, I'm going to come back around to that same day delivery and the things you guys were just talking about. Don't be an idiot. Think about the environment in which you're operating. All 5 of us are in large metropolitan areas, and we know when we can't get anywhere in a productive time period, right? Because that freeway becomes a parkway and it's not moving. So if you are in that same day delivery space, those trucks with the smiley faces, or those big brown trucks that run through your neighborhoods, I'm getting stuff on my doorstep before 6 a.m. and I'm still getting stuff after 7 p.m. and there's not as much traffic on the road in my part of Phoenix, Arizona at that time. So just it demonstrates that they're running right in a wider angle of time. There's less congestion. Those drivers can be more productive. To try to put them out there and deliver between 4 and 7, I think you're setting yourself up for doom. Back to your question, Guy, I think looking at how you're operating inside your environment, and the things that these drivers are doing. I work for an insurance company. Our defensive driving program was built off of a fleet that utilized ethics and technique. And the mindset was, if I am going to operate with a mindset that I'm going to behave safely, I'm not going to kill somebody today, right? That's an ethical decision that I've made. I'm going to operate safely. It's too icy, the traffic is too thick. This isn't a good time. That's an ethical decision that I'm going to avoid claims. And then the technique is I'm going to behave compliant, not speeding, not lane changing, right? Not running up behind someone too close. It's those ethical decisions on my techniques. That was the essence of that driver behavior thing. Underwriting is trying to see does the fleet say this and then demonstrate it, right? That's what Phil used to do. Phil used to look at these things and then go out there and assess, are they really doing? Are they walking the
So,
talk into their loss results
But I-
demonstrated?
You know, my question is that when you do that, is that when we know that on average there is 80% driver turnover in fleet, so the best fleet are 15 to 20%, the worst fleet 120% driver turnover. How do you know, isn't that a little bit gambling, that just thinking that, oh, well, maybe they are going to hire the right people? And my take on it is, okay, why don't we use data and technology to monitor the new driver on an ongoing basis? And can we intervene on an ongoing basis? And I'm not talking about just, looking at driver. I'm also, hey, is the manager doing their job at training? And can we use the proper software to bring that data together and tell people and inform people about what's happening? I mean, isn't that like what we should be doing?
Yeah, Guy, you're talking where data should be utilized, where it's moving towards what it can do. I don't think it has been. I think underwriters have been taking the data in so that they can confirm where it is. Is it in the lanes that I expected, the miles that I expected? There is some of that data, but it's still in the rearview mirror. You're to the point today where you're in the driver's seat today saying what's going on, right? And so therein lies your proactive mindset that I can tell, not just on their MBRs, which is what we used to underwrite on.
Yeah.
Right? This guy's got speedings, he's got reckless, he's got failure to yield. He's showing these things that studies like ATI have shown. These are the drivers that have the crashes, right? The crash happened, let's look at it. Let's look up the dead horse's orifices and figure out, right, what happened here. And so once it happens, that's what we're trying to avoid. How do we prevent the crash from happening? Right? That's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah.
So what can you do?
Phil, from your standpoint, because safety and compliance and loss control is really your expertise, I think. Is it fair to say that probably the most important message that is coming out of this call with Jay's audience is it does boil down at the highest level to management, but having good information, having good data, having good training, and having management enforce what the drivers are doing. Phil, does that kind of make sense? What you try to get companies to do, where you have a loss control problem?
Yeah, absolutely. And it boils down to culture, right? What's the culture of the company, and that kind of encompasses all of that, right? And then it becomes the driver making. Rich was talking about making good decision. It becomes the driver. Wants them to make good decisions, wants them to do good, right? They're driving that positive culture to be able to get the outcomes that they want, right? So yeah, you hit it on the head.
Yeah, and I think that, we are going to see more data coming from the truck, not less. And so we need to be aware of that as well. And we need to my take on it is that we need to make the data from the truck, all the data we are talking about, our friends. And how do we do that? Even AI is good, but it's not perfect. Some of the work we see is that, there's for some camera types, the failure rate is around 80 to 85% because, they are not that good yet. So I think that can we bring everything together, and can we embrace the usage of data to do things better, and can we do that in a more effective way? That would be also my thinking.
So here's what I wrote down listening to you. So if you've got the data to predict a situation, you got the technology to warn about the situation that could be pending, and then you have the management, awareness, and enforcement. Now you have a culture of active risk management.
Yeah.
Close?
Yeah, close. Yeah. Everybody has to be involved. I think you nailed it. You summarized it very well. And I think that understanding that you can take control of the data at scale is really important.
I'm reading a note here that Danae has posted, drivers in all aspects of freight can make or break the motor carrier, and that's so
right.
true, right? I mean that resource, is in control of it. Once again, they're the captain of the ship, and
That's right.
so the drivers, if you let the inmates run the asylum, things are going to go crazy. We all have to work safely in our different roles, right? And so
And there is the ROI. I mean, it's not free. There is actual return on investment when for the carrier that takes those action. It would be reducing their costs of insurance. That's where I was trying to guide you, Rich. It's going to help them take control and make them insurable better. It will improve their cash flow and bottom line, and also allow them to reduce their reserve because they have a better way of managing. And as Norris pointed out, on a day-to-day basis, it will allow them to save money on fuel costs. So all of that, there is actual ROI. Depending how you look at it, it can be, up to 20 or 25x the cost of implementing something like that. The ROI are exceptional. But I think, as Norris pointed out, management and the leadership of an organization have to get want to do it. What we are finding, talking to transportation companies, it's not always obvious that management or the leadership of transportation company want to change things.
The hardest thing to do, but probably the key to all of this, is to be able to get ownership and management to come up with and instill a cultural transformation of the way we do business, so that we're changing attitudes, we're changing behavior, but we're doing it for the right reasons, because we're keeping people out of trouble, we're reducing accidents, we're reducing potential driver injuries. So I like using the words cultural transformation, because it suggests change, it suggests a much higher level. So from my standpoint, if there's anything that's coming out of this session, is let's talk about how we can transform the culture of a company that's got concerns, and what are the steps necessary to make something happen positive. Jay,
I like one point to that from Ronald Reagan, or a quote that he made famous: "Trust but verify."
I love that.
Yeah.
It seems like a tall order in today's, right? Aren't there like 5 to 10 priorities above active risk management?
Well,
Safety is number one. It has to be number one because it drives everything else.
It shouldn't even be a priority. It should be ingrained in everything that company does, because priorities change.
yeah, but Jay, what your point was, I think you're right. It's delivery of goods. That's what your point you were making, I think.
That's
And
my continuing pessimism.
Yeah.
Well, I see, when I read a headline, we now have same day auto delivery. I'm thinking, really?
It's no different than a taxi cab.
Is that right? Yeah, right. There you go. Yeah, what could go wrong? It's worth it.
Yeah. But I think also the flip side of that argument is that you can, if you have, it's a little bit my soapbox, but I think you can, even with those type of constraint, you can manage your risk in a way that is going to improve your bottom line. There is
Sure, but I want to add that I don't think, I'm speculating, but the company that said same day auto delivery in your local area, at least they cut it off there, I don't think they have the most qualified drivers doing that same day delivery. I don't think so.
It depends. I used to have one as a client, and they had invested in that because it's also the driver represent the company. So when they deliver something, they don't want to have their name on the side of the delivery truck and have an accident.
Now, it's interesting you say that, because that is one of the talking points is, well, we really want our branding because we want to take credit for same-day delivery. Although I think it was noted here that you don't see a lot of those types of parcel businesses in a crash on the side of the road. I hadn't thought of that,
Yeah.
You're right. I can't think of one.
Yeah.
So I could be prematurely pessimistic, but we are always trying to move faster and faster.
Yeah.
And when I look at the statistics of what's happening with, as they call them, four-wheelers, cars on the road in relation to trucks, I literally saw it yesterday where a car just sped right in front of, I think it was a tanker truck.
Mm-hmm.
We'll say it wasn't, whatever. But I thought that was just a stupid move for no reason.
Yeah.
Well, but
You just don't care about trucks.
that's the hard part, Jay, and you bring up a great point. You referenced Rob Carpenter earlier, right? We all watch the crash videos on social media anymore, right? And the contribution, it's an unsafe work environment that the truck driver is in every day. It's unsafe because all of the whack jobs, cutting them off. I mean, my first major fatality accident as a truck underwriter was no fault of the truck drivers besides the fact that he was on the road. Everybody took away his safety space and slammed on the brakes. They met their maker because of that stupid mistake, right? And that truck driver has to live with that the rest of their life. And those people get to deal with it in eternity. But you know, the deal is don't do stupid things, right? Because it can kill you. And when you act dumb around a truck, you can act dumb around a pickup truck.
And there you go. There's your marketing. They need video screens on the backs of trucks playing deadly crashes. That might
Are we
work.
talking about distracted driving now?
Or maybe the videos. It's in fact there's no video until you get close enough,
And then,
which begins the deadly crash video.
Maybe
There
it just
was a-
needs to
there
say,
was-
This is actually a great idea.
The better idea, Jay, is there was a major television manufacturer that created a television to be mounted on the back of the door of a trailer with a camera on the front of the tractor so that the people behind could see what's in front of the tractor.
Ooh, that is a great idea. And if you get too close, it's a picture of you with like, a broken windshield.
You're on the,
AI.
you're on the TV.
maybe we have to bring back the Roadrunner and the Coyote and just show the Coyote getting blasted.
There you go. If you get close enough, it's Roadrunner Coyote.
But back
would make
back to
sense.
that accident the other day. This pickup truck all of a sudden veers right into the front end of that semi truck, and he takes out his steer wheel. So now they're both going across. Thank God there's no other traffic, so they had two clear lanes before they go over. And now that tractor trailer's on top of the pickup truck. So the pickup truck was the whole cause of it, and they took the real brunt of it.
I mean, the other-
Rich, how do you explain that crash the other day on I-10 in the windstorm or dust storm? How do you explain that? That should not happen.
Yeah. Once again, as a retail agent, I had a client devastated because their driver went into one of those. And I mean, it looked like a, end of the world type video because the helicopters are flying around, and there's just semis and cars and everything on fire. I mean, nobody should have been on the road. Nobody should have been on the road in that dust storm. And that's you guys understand snowstorms up north, a blizzard, a whiteout condition, or heavy fog, but when you get into a sandstorm, it's the same thing. And you're supposed to go as far off to the side of the road, off the road if you can, because it's the same stupid thing that happens in all those other kinds of crashes. And there's enough electronic notices and warnings that you should just get off the roads, but people don't.
And when we think about the cost of accident, and Philip, maybe you know that better than me, like you have the frequency of crashes that have result in injuries, but isn't part of the cost and the rising cost of losses is because you have fender bender and then light injury and that type of accident costs are just rising. And so if you can take control of all those smaller accidents, then it has an influence in your bottom line. Do you see that, Philip?
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just So loss costs across the board have gone up over the last several
Agreed.
years, and that's for medical care, that's for equipment, like so vehicles, the technology. I mean, you get into a minor fender bender with one of these, like a Tesla, there's a good chance it might be totaled, right? Because just there's so much technology and how much it costs. And then you have people not understanding the value of a dollar, like, hey, I got hit by a truck, my back hurts a little bit. I think I need $1 million because that's what the billboard says I need, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of these factors playing in there. But yeah, I mean, medical's gone up. Like I said, cost of repairs, towing has gone up. It's just, and it's, I don't want to say it's because of inflation, but because I think it was happening before we seen this spike in inflation.
Yeah, but in general, still the cost and the litigation costs are also continuing to go up. Even if it's a small litigation, everybody believes that they can get something out of the system. There was a great safety manager of a large fleet. I spoke with MCIEF. He understood that to settle even a small claim or large claim, you need to intervene immediately. And that if you are in charge of risk management, so it could be the CFO, the CEO, or the VP of risk management, you need to be empowered of settling claim as fast as possible. Do you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, because, it's just like we were talking about, you want the driver to, feel good and feel needed and all that stuff. It's the same with a claimant. So if I get hit by a truck, and I don't get a phone call from anybody like, hey, are you okay? Or, and basically feeling like I'm being ignored. Well, that's going to give me time to kind of stew on this. Like, well, hey, they don't even care. So I'm going to go ahead and sue them, right? So if, you're a motor carrier, always, always, always report that accident immediately, right? Because that way you can get your claims people involved if you have internal claims people, and then they can get ahead of it, right? Because the sooner you take care of the problem, the smaller the problem is going to be. Like, you let that thing sit, and statistics show that the longer a claim's open, the higher the cost is going to be.
And Norris, let me ask you this. Do you think, have you seen executive at transportation company like encourage and empower their risk manager to really take control of claims when there is one?
Absolutely. It's not as common as it should be, but absolutely. I work with a lot of companies, and they're well managed, but they've got ownership and responsibility in the various departments, and they do supervise and monitor driver activity a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're also very careful about how they hire, and how they train. So the answer to your question is there's a lot more positive things going on than there are negative. Give you an example. There's a lot of insurance companies that are insuring trucking companies. If they were that bad, they would be out of business.
Well, I mean, the data last year show that so that's where I'm a little bit more skeptical, because the loss ratios on average for market on insurance last year was above 100. It was, I think, anywhere between 105 and 110, depending which report you are looking at. So I think that, it's not as simple as that. Plus, there's all the different ways to provide coverage, like captive, NGAs, and things like that. So, I agree with you. But
one of the things we need to consider is what numbers are in those statistics in terms of.
For sure.
We don't know where.
We're going to have a debate like that right now.
They may be capping the losses, let's say at 1 million, and not including the nuclear. But if they're including larger numbers, then it's the question is about the type of claims that they're having, whether that's growing. Okay, the number of claims and the type of claims, and that makes more impact than the severity.
Yeah, and I think I think we were seeing, but the loss ratio of insurance company has been increasing, and that's why Ireland was quoting the rate, and even Marsh was saying that at the international level, the only country that has not seen a decline in insurance rate is the United States, and that the line of insurance that is still has major problem is commercial auto.
The top insurance underwriter for trucking, I talked to one of their people in January. He said their numbers in 2024 were as good as they've ever going to get. They were around 88, which blew me away. It was that good. Now,
those guys were very good.
Yeah,
but it's not the most common. And if you are on the average, your costs are going to go up.
There's a lot to be learned from this, but the key is commitment. Sure, you want to change that culture, you want to transform the culture, but if the commitment is there at the right levels and there's a lot of follow up and follow through, you'll make a difference. So all that we've talked about today is doable, depending on how much your commitment is to make the transformation.
And the other thing I think Rich was mentioning is that when him and I were talking about, traceability of the action being taken using different tools, and that, if you can show that you can trace the action of your different team at different point in time, your legal exposure, is being reduced. Didn't we have that discussion, Rich?
Again, it's defendability of yourself.
Yeah.
Is that's what we interacted with that one attorney about, right? Anything that you're doing that shows, that's the discussion in today's market, right? Above compliance, beyond compliance, what am I doing, right? What are the extraordinary things that I'm doing? I'm gonna put a plug in for something that Gallagher put out on this, and they're talking about the use of technology like telematics. It's still, as Norris has focused on, about the right driver being hired. It's still training that driver appropriately, like Phillip and Norris have talked about. And then you got to be in compliance, right? You still got to have a good, safe fleet. And then the extraordinary things that we see good motor carriers doing is being prepared before that crash happens. People got to be in the right mindset to keep cool and act right should something happen, because you may not be at fault. You got to keep your cool. And then you got to be involved. And I have seen motor carriers extremely involved in their claims, in the resolution of it, and partnering with the adjuster, and they make a significant difference. I know that doesn't make you money, yet it does make you money because you're diminishing your losses on your loss ratio.
I mean, that's part of it. I mean, the other thing I was thinking is that, and Jay's point was, okay, what can we do to prevent crashes and prevent accident from happening? And I think that from listening to Norris and Phil and even you, is like there's a lot of things in the culture, in the practice, in the use of technology that can be brought together to make to prevent losses from happening, and it should not have a significant impact on delivery. Do you guys agree with that? I mean, having a risk management approach and a proactive risk management approach may not, in fact, impact fully or the delivery or delivery time. Do you guys agree with that?
And I want to jump in and add this. While I think that society fears AI with some aspects of where it's going, I think we're relying on AI to help solve some of these complex problems.
Yes. But what we are finding is that you still need to have a human at some level to verify the quality of the information that the AI has been generated. Depending on what system, we have statistics that show that the AI camera are only reliable up to a certain extent. So you need to balance that leverage of technology versus what is actually happening.
Here's a truism that is not negotiable. No truck driver has ever woken up in the morning at any point in their time and said, I'm going to have a wreck today. So it's a matter of attitude when you start your day and you ask yourself, how well am I going to perform today? It's just not something we think about.
Yeah.
Okay?
I think that's a fair point.
It has changed the way we drive all the time, and it could be external or internal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tyler asked a good question. Can anyone speak about strategies and difficulties towards improving safety for independent contractor fleets?
So is a fleet with only independent contractor? Is that will be your understanding?
I think that's what he means, because that is the bulk of owner operator. Yeah, Rich.
Let me jump in, and Bill can correct me, and you can all correct me. Still, if you're the motor carrier whose DOT's on the side of that truck, you are responsible for the safety of that vehicle on the roadway. You're still putting the driver in a safety sensitive position to go out there and operate on the public highways and roads. So that's your duty. That's your duty, motor carrier. You cannot put somebody out there who's not appropriately ready to operate this commercial vehicle. So you have to take that to heart. Now, you can't manage them like an employee. It's an arm's length relationship, and you have to manage it through a contract. And so your contract has to be very clear on what your expectations are. And if you're going to do certain things, and if you're going to have certain expectations, you put them in your contract. And if they don't want to comply, they don't get to work for you. You don't dispatch them. And so it's a different kind of a relationship. But if that's the way you're going to operate, that's the way you're going to operate. Now, they get a percentage of the revenue, right? So you gotta keep in mind that they're running a business. And so it's a delicate balance, but that's what you have to do. And I worked with a fleet that was split, and they had certain drivers that were employee drivers, and then they had another division that was all IC drivers. And I mean, that guy that ran it was the one that really told me, these are my employee drivers that I operate, in this manner, and then these are my ICs that I operate in this manner. And it's all managing through the contract. And yet everybody had to do what? Pick up on time, deliver it on time, damage free, and no accidents. How do you get that done?
I know that next month
Phillip, you are muted. Phillip, you are muted.
Phillip's muted. Yeah, go
Sorry,
ahead.
I can't work a computer these days, man. Holy
I
smokes.
do it all the time.
Go ahead, Jay. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Well, I just want to say this, because we'll talk a little bit more, but MCIEF is in a month.
Yeah.
Motor Carrier Insurance Education Foundation in Orlando. And what, as we continue to talk, are we hitting on some of the main topics, or are there some that we've left out?
No, I think that I think that from my last attendance to the conference, you are hitting a lot of the main topic that are being addressed. Is that what to do when there are claims, and how to do underwriting is a lot of the work that is being done there. Maybe Rich, you can talk a little bit more about that.
Well, I think your observation, having been there the first time, Guy, it's how are they bringing it in, and then how are they resolving the problems? And there's this chasm that we're here to talk tonight about, and so tonight it's those those challenges, and when Phillip was doing that for the insurance company, he's in this time period between underwriting and somewhere in the claims process, and they're saying to Phil, make them operate better. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight. And how do we avoid having crashes, and how do we keep the profitability? How do we keep the loss ratio under 100, right?
That's right.
How do I know that I've charged an adequate amount of premium? And then how do you help that motor carrier succeed, not having crashes?
Yeah. I think it's ongoing, daily, hourly management and reviewing, making sure that the process is managed. And you can do that because I think today, these are the things, there is the technology to make that a reality. I mean, the technology can be, for some, your enemy, but for a lot of people, it's your friend. And I think a lot of, if there is something I would like to share with the people listening to this, the technologies that exist can be your friend. Make it your friend, and you will see result in your reducing your losses, in improving actually driver retention. We found that by having or automated process management, you can increase driver retention because every driver is now being communicated to on a weekly basis, rather than only the bad driver and the other one ignore, because there's a limit in resources. So make your technology your friend, and whatever you use, and you can make a difference.
Jay, you asked a question about the conference coming up. There's a lot of new topics that need to be discussed, but they're not related to insurance as respects to the industry. One of the things that I'm concerned about is a changing marketplace and how it's going to impact drivers, how it's going to impact turnover and retention. It's going to affect turnover and retention. The more rates go up.
Can you expand on that?
Yeah. What I'm concerned about is drivers are already preparing to consider what's going on in the marketplace as respects to freight rates. Because when freight rates come up, and when the capacity increases, and there's more need for the drivers in some cases are going to start looking around for better deals. Okay, which means you've got some real hidden issues going on in your company which you really don't know about until you start seeing drivers leaving. So that's just one issue that the marketplace is offering up as a concern. I'm spending a lot of time focusing on that one issue alone. I'm building a whole series of articles about just that one topic because it's not getting a lot of attention. And primarily it's not getting a lot of attention because unfortunately we haven't turned the corner yet. Okay, but I'm trying to see around corners and see what's coming.
So you're saying that...
Sorry?
No, I think Jay was going to say.
Well, Guy paused for me. Thanks, Guy. Well, I was going to add this: thanks, Guy. So I think that there is a serious problem in owner-operator auto transport community retention, driver retention. I think that there's higher turnover than we even realize. There are companies that I thought, talked to them 5 years ago. What are they doing now? I don't think they're in business. I think that's happened to such a degree that I'm not sure anybody's even worried about it. As long as there's another guy filling that spot, okay, that's fine. Who are they? How qualified are they? Well, we'll put up gates so that they can't get the load until after 6 months, MC, DOT, this and that. But what do they really know about the community and requirements and safety? I don't know if anybody's really worried about it, as long as the car gets delivered same day.
What do you think, Norris?
Well, I've just spent 4 months in Texas working with a company in exactly this kind of a situation, Jay. The turnover is terrible. Okay, and part of it is because they're not making any money because there's just not enough freight moving around. So when you're trying to replace people, you're getting people that just don't have a lot of experience, and in many cases, the kind of equipment that your audience is hauling necessarily is not CDL equipment, which means anybody can start pulling, an F-250, an F-350.
They're working as hard as possible to stay under CDL.
Absolutely.
And that creates a whole new set of problems.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Extremely easy in and out.
But there's one thing in common. They all have one thing in common. They have to be insured. They all have to stay insured. And I can tell you this, based on my previous company, I will tell you, they have a lot of problem staying insured. And so then what do you do about it? If they are not CDL, they are just below it, and they are still professional that are driving for to make a living. So they may not be CDL professional, but they still have that problem.
So only if they only have their own authority, they have problems getting insurance. If they're working for a company with authority, they get insured automatically. But your point is right. If I go out and I want to get my own authority, and I want to start pulling these the cars with a gooseneck or something, you're right. I could have a lot of trouble getting insurance.
And I think they're individual owner operators learning as they go. It's not their fault, but they're trying to make a living. But in the grand scheme of auto hauling, it's not great.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely.
And nobody's really worried about it. And I'm not here to, I don't want to be Chicken Little in the situation, but I'm not sure where it's going.
Well, the question is, are you concerned about who you're giving your cars to? You know, would you give this
Everybody's
vehicle,
absolutely worried and yet still kind of doing it
would you
because they don't
would you
really
put,
know what else to
would you
do.
put this car on anybody's trailer? Would you
Because
just
there's
hand
so
that car over?
and that's it, there's so much competition to satisfy the client that you just keep gambling. It is just constant gambling out there.
Yeah. And when there is a loss, then you realize how much gambling you have been doing. I mean, that's a problem.
And now, if that wasn't bad enough, all this fraud gets thrown into the mix. And actually, I think that's why fraud thrives. Right? This is bacteria diving into a kettle of old beer and nobody's stirring it.
What
That's
fraud
a
are
terrible
you doing?
analogy, but I mean, if you're a fraudster, this is heaven. Nobody even knows who's in charge.
What fraud are you thinking about, Jay?
All right, so online freight fraud, where you learn how to hack in to systems, steal dispatches. I don't know how it's done. I don't work in freight fraud.
You're talking freight, not cars.
Well, I say freight in generic terms.
Okay, that's okay
Right.
because that's where it's
Cars, freight,
Yeah, but I mean,
potatoes,
you saw high-end vehicles getting taken.
and it's happening right now. Right now, a dispatch is being hacked, and the driver's being spoofed, or the carrier, and it's just going on. And FMCSA is a safety organization. The FBI isn't exactly sure. They tell you if you're a victim of freight fraud, call the FBI. I'd love to talk to the FBI about this.
they don't want to hear you. They don't want to talk to you.
Right? What are you talking about?
There's no blood spilled. There's no blood spilled. There's nobody hurt, so they really don't care. That's what makes the cargo underwriters mad, because you can't get the police involved in it because there's no blood spilled.
Well, they may not have the resources.
You know, so it's just lost property. So so what? You lost a Corvette. You lost a Lamborghini. No big deal. I mean, they don't care.
Right. And so, and I'm not, now I'm just picking at the wound. But Norris, getting back to the point, is that, you know, you're I applaud you for being focused on trying to see around the corner. And this is a corner that I kind of look around as well. Actually, I stopped looking because it's freaky. I don't know if AI autonomous trucking is the only solution to this continuum.
Plus it's far away. I mean, think about it. I
Well,
mean,
it is far away. Yeah,
there's
that's the good news.
There's 44 million vehicles in North America that are considered commercials, from the pickup truck to the class 7 and 8. So 44 million commercial vehicles, and we don't even have 1,000 autonomous vehicles. Yes, it's going to happen, but let's look at it the other way. Your driver is also your relationship manager with the client, and I think that's another value point that we need to consider. You know, driver have a lot of relationship value. Sometimes they know more your client than you do because they see them every other day.
And it's ironic that I think, okay, now I'm going to call out brokers. I haven't said it once in an hour and a half. I think brokers don't like that. Brokers don't want the carrier to get that close to the client. In fact, some brokers don't let the carrier talk to the client.
Yeah. Because you're talking about
Whole nother issue. That's
Yeah.
That's 10 episodes away.
All right, we'll be back next week.
Well, that's actually one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this stuff, is that there's many directions to go.
Yeah.
But
You don't know where some of the bodies are buried.
oh man, I don't want to know.
Yes, you do.
Okay, episode 12 coming to an ATI near you. Rich.
Well, I mean, the whole Motor Carrier Act of 1980, deregulation of trucking, right? Where truckers had control of all these lanes and you could only haul certain freight if you had the authority. That all disappeared in 1980, which brings us this many years later, right? 45 years later, guess what? All this fraud's happening, right? These freight brokers are involved. And once again, there are rogues out there who are stealing freight. As you said, there's legitimate freight brokers with good motor carriers. Then there's all levels, right? Just like there's all levels of motor carriers, there's all levels of freight brokers, and it's shipper beware of who you're doing business with.
Yeah. I like to think that most people are going to do the better things for the right reason, the right thing for the right reason. And I think that, yes, there is always going to be a problem. So then the question is, what are the systems that you can do that to prevent this problem from happening? And I think we talk about a few things. One is, the right culture. The second part is, yes, involve everybody within the organization. And the last part is trust and verify. It doesn't matter. I think it doesn't matter what the organization is you just need to make sure people work well together, and then you give them the tool to make that a reality. I think I'm very optimistic about people, and I think that sometimes they find themselves in bad situation. But I think in general, people on a day-to-day basis want to try to do the right thing. We just need to be helping them. And I think one of the issues when you talk about driver and their behavior on the road, I don't think, and I think as Norris was saying, they don't wake up in the morning to say, hey, they want to kill somebody. But what happened as a human psyche, we diminish the dangerosity of our action. We diminish how dangerous our actions are, and we emphasize the positive. We diminish the negative and emphasize the positive. So what's important, and the reason you need to have tools, is to basically reinforce, to driver and managers and to those people that, hey, pay attention. It's not to fire people. It's to help them be better at their job. It doesn't matter what you do. And yes, there is going to be fraudster, but that's hopefully not what we are talking about.
I feel like we're beyond overtime.
Oh, sorry about that.
Although I know I love it. It's great. This has been a great show. I don't want to end it early, but at the same time, I want to be conscious of, everyone's taking their personal time right now. So, does anyone add a final thought or anything else we didn't talk about, or, a punctuation mark, or?
I love it. Thank you.
This has been great. Yeah. Really, before I forget, I'm going to hit the applause button. I think we've really had a solid 1 hour plus conversation. We had a couple planning sessions. Yes, camera one for anybody that wants to know how this works. Yeah, someone says, hey, Jay, let's make a show. That was Rich. Rich said, hey, Jay, got a great idea. You should meet these folks. Great, let's put a show together. We talked a couple times, briefly. We don't have a script or a direct outline, but we know that there's some important topics. We know that MCIEF is an important trade event, as well as other events. We know that we're running businesses. We have important topics to discuss and share. We know that Rob Carpenter is sharing freaky videos pretty much every day. Yeah. Right? I can't get the one out of my head. Did you see the one about the guy's on his iPad? He's real fidgety. I guess he's driving with his knees. I don't know what he's doing. And I'm not going to run it. I don't have it in front of me. It's freaky. And he's just really, he is I tell you what, you said nobody wakes up in the morning thinking I want to have an accident today. If anybody does, it was this guy. All right? And he's just do. I don't know what he's thinking. I'm assuming he's on something, or he's in a very engaging iPad situation.
We don't want to know about that.
Jake, do you have topics? You have topics that are hot with your audience that we should talk about?
Well, I tell you, what I like about this tranche of topics is that, like, I just talked with Tyler Biddle. He was in the live chat. Thank you, Tyler. And Tyler and I talked. He's going to come on, and we're going to do a show. We're actually talking about carrier broker situation actually ends up in a legal complaint. But in this arena, FMCSA, truck parking, carrier requirements, I was big on ELD 5 years ago. I had ELD Kool-Aid. I'm trying to answer your question and say there's so much on the bone on this trucking, compliance, carrier technology that, yeah, I like to hit it periodically, and Rich knows that. That's why I think he tapped me on the shoulder.
And any of these guys that you got in front of you, Jay, are resources, and tell your audience that, right? Anybody on this tonight.
Thank you. And I'll tell you, I think, Norris, I think to get to the real answer for your question is yes and no. I don't always talk about transportation and logistics, but when I do, I know several points of passion on this topic. And I do have carriers that tune in to my show, 925 Logistics. He's in here. He says hello. He's a carrier. And there are other carriers that will tune in periodically. But here's the bad news. What I said about auto hauler community, one of the reasons I said it is I see it diminishing. I'm actually going to be talking about this Thursday. Thursday's show is Tone Deaf Marketing in Automotive. We have reached a point in automotive where companies are saying stuff to sell stuff, not because there's any community to talk to. The carrier community is
by the way, you've got 1,000
broken.
drivers. You've got 1,000 drivers that are auto haulers that just left the job.
Perfect example. And so what it's become is it's a business opportunity for other companies that are still in business. And I've seen some folks say, oh man, if you're looking for a job, I'm here to help. And I believe in that, right? That's that ghee positivity stuff. It's great. But there are so many people looking for jobs right now, and that is going to continue.
Yeah.
Things are not getting better. We are not in a golden age. So Jay and his pessimism is raging rampant right now. I mean, it's not good. And the driver community is not getting better. So I don't have a growing contingent to talk to, but that doesn't mean it's not worth doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still believe in trying. That's why I believe in tonight's show. I believe in trying. I don't know how it actually. I don't know the active solution, but I believe in trying.
Well, stay tuned because you're going to see a surge in truck driver and trucking operations fairly quickly. It's going to start increasing significantly. Now,
So,
to slow it down a bit. Okay.
I wanted to ask you that. Okay, so freight capacity, because we see this on outlets like Freight Waves, etc. Freight capacity and rates are going to go up?
Rates will go up, capacity will go up, but you're also going to end up with a lot more problems because you're going to be going the other direction. You'll need more trucks, you'll need more drivers, you're going to need to pay them more, and that's where we're going to start having problems keeping drivers. So that's kind of the continuum.
So it's interesting. So that's freight. We're talking general freight. Now let's talk auto logistics and car hauling.
Well, right
I don't
now,
know if that's the trend.
Right now, you should worry about tomorrow because the tariffs are going to really put the squeeze on car sales.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
Right. So finished vehicle logistics capacity will plummet,
You're going to get drivers sitting doing nothing.
and those drivers will need something to do.
Yes.
That's exactly right.
Right.
Yeah.
And used car haulers, the last thing you want to hear is what we just said. Because the used car spot market does not need more car haulers. Another irony of the whole driver shortage thing, which is debatable.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be.
It's going to be fun.
Guy, go ahead. He said,
Oh,
stay
I
tuned.
was listening to what the economic pressure in the next few months are going to be hard to watch in the transportation because there is going to have a readjustment of I was listening to a car dealership today that was saying that because of tariff, some of their cars are going to stay on the lot because they just increased by 20%, versus other, like even Chevrolet was part of it because of the relationship between Canada and the United States, and German or South Asian cars were not being part of that taxation. But on the other hand, the American car may suffer more. So it's going to be hard to watch. I think that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
I think hard to watch is what it's saying. I think people are going to start hoping checks start coming from the government monthly again, which is an irony.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. Okay, and on that note, I want to thank Rich, Phillip, Guy, and Norris for a great discussion about reducing motor carrier risk. I think we really took that large bat and swung at it pretty hard. So I think there's candy all over the floor now, and way to go, panel. Really good job. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Keep in touch. Let me know how I can help. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Cool. All right. And I'm going to end this meeting, and let's be in touch.
Thanks. Take care.
Take care, guys. Thank you so much. All right, cool. That was awesome. When I finish a show, I like to see how fast I can give it a wrap up. But not too fast. I want to thank Rich Bren, Phillip Wiggington. We had Guy Orliac and Norris L. Beren. That was awesome. One of my benefits of doing the show is I get to make new friends each Tuesday night. And also in the live chat. I want to thank you, live chat. Thank you so much. Great comments, interaction. If you're watching live or on demand, if you're watching tomorrow or in a year or in 1,000 years, thank you for doing that. Please leave a like. Remember to share. Tell your friends about ATI. Yeah, it's still going. It's still there. And we talk about everything. Trucking isn't exactly a direct overlap of automotive, but finished vehicle logistics is a huge part of automotive. And that's what got me interested in learning more about freight and rail and ocean vessel shipping and ports. And then it brings it back to automakers and what's going on in Europe and China. And it is amazing. But even just on America's highways, when it comes to insurance and carriers and safety and tech and all the minutia of human beings and management and risk, there is a lot to talk about. And so I want to thank you for tuning in for tonight's show, being a part of it. I want to thank Murphy Auto Transport Services, Superflow Systems, and we will be back next Tuesday night. What am I doing next Tuesday? I like to try to keep moving around the verticals. Next Tuesday night, I have Matthew Davis of Trade Pending, and we're talking about, why do you shoot so much video? Are you shooting video? Do you know what you're doing? Would it be helpful to learn more about what you're doing and why? And Matthew Davis of Trade Pending, he's the Chief Marketing Officer, and he was talking at Used Car Week about just basics and methodology of purpose, intentional video shooting to build your business. And what I thought was really weird is that it was an amazing breakout session. There weren't a lot of people in the room. I know what that's like. I talked to him. I said, man, you got to come live on ATI. Bring some of that good stuff. Tell us live. Sit down with me. Have a one-on-one. Since it's about video, Matthew's so cool. That's the show. That's next Tuesday night show. Again, this Thursday is Tone Deaf Marketing and Automotive. I'm sure that's going to be a good time. Me and Sue will bring the information at noon on Thursday. Otherwise, go to the YouTube homepage, go to ATIAutobusiness.com, find me on YouTube, find me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much. I'm done. I'm out of here. I'm running the car hauler. I'll see you again soon. Thanks, everybody. Good night.